All right, Chaz, let's get right to it. Not even 2 weeks into the season, and it's already happened twice. A few shows ago, you anointed the extra innings win for the Reds against Boston as a game that had some elements to it that we'll talk about all season. The energy at Great American Ballpark. How for the first time this year, the Reds unlocked some of the magic they think could help them make this a special season. So there was that game. Then there was another game on Tuesday in Miami, also extra innings, a game that brought the kind of excitement that you're not supposed to get from a Tuesday game in April in a mostly empty ballpark. Let's be honest about that. And since our last show had a bit of a musical theme to it, thanks to you, I thought we'd start this show with another musical parallel for our little baseball podcast. The band Red Clay Strays has a song called Made by These Moments. So I ask you, Chaz, how do you think the 2026 Reds are being made or shaped by some of these moments that we've seen early in the season?
They're just the type of moments that good teams have. There are still questions and concerns I have about this roster, and we'll spend lots of time talking about those over the next 6 months. But the more moments like these you stack, the more revealing that is. They had no chance to win on Tuesday. But Elly's slide was a reminder of two things. The scoring on the pass ball or on the wild pitch, completing that comeback on Tuesday. It was a reminder of two things. One, kind of the beauty of baseball, that it could happen at any moment, any game. A boring day in Miami can be one of those magical events. And then the other is that this is just a Reds team that has a better ability to come back than they had in 2025. And I like those things, and that's really encouraging to see.
Several people, myself included, expressed a desire to hear you sing the rest of the Wake Forest fight song. Is that
That's all I got.
possible?
I just
That's all
got
you
the
got?
chorus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the Go Deeks part.
Yeah.
And the Shakira Hips Don't Lie. We're talking about Chase Burns.
I probably could sing that entire song, but I won't.
Okay.
I draw a line somewhere.
Okay. But I like I'm glad you draw a line. I like that we have so much crossover appeal that you can bring that into a show, or that we can do musical parallels. It's refreshing. And I like, and even though the generational gap between you, Charlie Goldsmith, and Brian Giesenslaw is often highlighted by the things we bring up, I like it. So let's keep doing that. The moment Tuesday was punctuated, I thought, as watching from home, was punctuated when Elly De La Cruz, makes that run from third in the ninth inning. There's that great still shot of just the emotion on his face. That was captured on social media, and then he got back in the dugout, and there was more of it. It felt bigger in some ways than even maybe what it was, just because you see the emotion and how that presents itself on the face of a star player that seems to be on a better team, that seems to be have a weight lifted already this year. I liked that moment from Elly De La Cruz, and I know we're going to dig deeper into that coming up, but to me, that encapsulated kind of the road trip and where the Reds are, a dozen games into the season. That look on Elly's face.
And he's kind of come full circle in that way. Like, as a rookie, he would have taken home there, but for completely different reasons. He just
Yeah.
would have went. And he scored on a lot of those opportunities in 2023. But we all know how many times the Reds, including Elly, ran into outs in the last
Yeah.
year and a half since Tito got the job with Elly and the team, but especially Elly, has been having a reason for running. The pitcher, the moment, the situation, the catcher, and everything. And we'll hear more later about Elly in that moment was that he was running for the right reasons. It was another example of the maturity, the polish, the advancement. that
Hmm.
Elly's taken. And it wasn't just, Elly, it was the double steal earlier in the game. Like it was Elly going first to home against Texas. It was the run and hit on Monday with Elly and Sal Stewart that manufactured the run. Heck, they lost on Wednesday, but I'm trying to remember the specifics. The moment in the first inning, I believe, where Elly manufactured a run, there was like a steal and a heads up read.
Yeah.
He forced an error because he was taking third, and the third baseman bobbled the ball, and Elly ran, and the speed put pressure on him. Like he's doing stuff like that. Matt and Sal are doing stuff like that, and that's good for the Reds.
More on that on the way. But welcome to Power Stacks, proud members of the Growler Podcast Network, proudly presented by Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati. Baseball season is back. That means long innings, big swings, and hope that rides on every pitch. Around here, we know the rhythm. Some nights are a grind, some nights are fireworks, but the teams that win are the ones with the right lineup and the right people in the dugout. That's exactly how the team at Joseph Toyota approaches things. No rebuilding year, no waiting for next season. Just a roster of experienced pros who know their positions and show up ready to perform every single day. So whether you, Power Stacks follower, whether you are stepping up to the plate for a new Toyota, maybe you're looking to trade in your current ride, or just exploring your options, Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati has a lineup built to deliver. It's the right people in the right roles, making sure every customer gets an all-star experience. So while you're listening to Power Stacks and following the Reds, remember there's a hometown team in Reds country working just as hard off the field. It's Joseph Toyota, a championship lineup, ready when you are. Chaz, on Thursday, there was an announcement. I thought it was extremely well done. There's something about an announcement, the rollout, the first impression. And it came on X from the Reds account, and it's the announcement of the Reds' new City Connect for this season. The Black City Connect that have been a staple on Friday for the past couple of seasons, huge hit. People love it. You see them at the ballpark. Those jerseys are everywhere. All right, so we have a new City Connect. This one is, I think the theme is rooted in red. So you go from pretty much all black to a kind of an all red look. Since you're our fashionista,
Hmm.
and they're not going to wear quarter zips, um, like you might. But what was your take on the new look for the Reds that they'll wear on Saturdays this season?
What I love is the
Mhm.
contrast between the pinstripe section of the uniform and then the matted red section of the uniform. I believe they called that like an connection to the sleeveless jerseys that they
Yeah,
wore back in the day.
yeah,
That's really cool, man. That's cool. I also think they nailed the black belts. Nice contrast. And I'm a big fan of the high red socks. I
yeah,
thought those looked good in the photos I saw.
yeah. I'm just kind of looking at some of the description in the press release that you just talked about. Uh, an evolution of the inaugural version, blending aspects of the club's traditional identity in a renewed style that incorporates the best elements from the first City Connect that debuted in 2023. So, yeah, the sleeve is a darker shade of red, um, intentionally cut off the shoulder, the pinstripes. Yeah, so like you said, a nod to the popular vest style jersey they wore 2 decades ago. Um, yeah, some great highlights there, but this has been so great for baseball, and it's worked great. Uh, if you go back to college, there was always whatever the event was that you were involved in, there was always a T-shirt associated with the event. Our joke in college was, you could screw up a T-shirt more ways than anyone ever thought because people overthought it. All the teams that have done City Connect that they've had help from the league and from Nike and input from the team, there's potential, and you could debate different teams have missed. There's been a swing and a miss on the City Connects. I don't think the Reds have done that. I'm anxious to see the public feedback on the Saturday Red, but in my opinion, I think they've hit on something good with both the blacks for Friday and the red for Saturday. It's a shame that blue is not a dominant color for the Reds because I think I saw the Braves rolled out more of the powder blue like you saw in Texas with the Rangers, which for some reason every team that has a powder blue look, those play so well. I like it.
I agree. I'm a very, very big I wear a lot of that color
Okay.
in my own personal life.
In Chaz's closet, there's a color. I like that. Your
I
personalized.
don't wear yellow, in case you were wondering.
Why is that?
I hate yellow.
Okay.
No
Sunglasses,
reason.
the color yellow.
The color
Uh,
yellow is very high on that list.
all right. There you go. Coming up on this edition of Power Stacks, he didn't steal home again. But it wasn't far from that for Elly De La Cruz. A unique perspective on the game-changing dash to the dish in Miami for Elly De La Cruz. Also, he'd done it in the same way for a dozen years and doesn't know what to do now. Geno Suarez talks to Chaz on one of the biggest changes of his baseball career. That was a great chalkboard this week. We're going to talk about that. And Tito likes to play cards, but it's the other teams this season so far dealing aces to face the Reds to start the season. Tito's take on those early season challenges. But first, let's do the leadoff spot. And you hit on this already, but it takes us back to the series in Miami and some of those moments. Clearly, I think the highlight was the Elly De La Cruz and his run, and we're going to go to that at the end of this section. But there were those little ones you talked about. Are the Reds? I know you've said a number of times already on this show, coming out of spring, what the emphasis on base running would be. But I think that's the best place to start the conversation because it's not what it was before a few seasons ago. It's not recklessly running, which we always tried to frame it as putting pressure on the defense, which you can still do that. But there's a different approach. And I think it's a more measured approach that I think you can see from the Reds in how they run the bases this season. And we saw some of that in Miami.
It's what Terry Francona calls running to win and running with a reason. And the beauty of Thursday's game was it was a perfect example of that. Of Tuesday's game. I'll also add in the examples recently where they've put Elly in motion and they give Sal the green light to hit through it. I like that. I think it's like play is the wrong word, but like it's a really cool play in the Reds playbook, and it works really well to the strengths of those two guys. And that kind of stuff is what gives you an offensive identity. And that word gets overused. And in a lot of ways, I believe that offense in baseball is so individual. Matt McClain has a different approach than Spencer Steer, but this collective stuff and how much it all was at the very, very front of your mind with how it won the Reds the game on Tuesday, that's going to stick with you as what they want this to look like.
So many things had to go right in that game late in the game on Tuesday. And the double steal felt like a well-scouted, well-timed, well-executed, winning baseball strategy for the Reds in a game that you remember they just got steamrolled by Sandy Alcantara for 8+ innings. They were at the mercy of Sandy Alcantara, and that's not anything negative about the Reds lineup or what they can do. He was just having that kind of a night, and it was going fast. And then as soon as he's out of the game, it opened the door. And thankfully, I think this is something when Terry Francona says, we don't quit, we don't go away. They were ready for when he unexpectedly, to some people, left that game. They were ready to execute a winning strategy, even though they only had a few outs left to work with, and the double steal was a big part of that.
And let's bring this back to Elly, too, who is just a more polished baseball player in executing. And McClain led the double steal, and McClain really was the hero on Tuesday with the hits he had starting the rally against Alcantara. But McClain's always been the Reds' most polished base runner. Heck, there was a moment from Wednesday, the game they lost, where Elly was going to steal second. The ball was fouled off, and Elly didn't slide. He was tracking the ball. Like, that's literally an example that Terry Francona has mentioned so many times. Going back to last year, he said, we heard him say this on the show, that There are moments where Elly's running, the ball gets fouled off, and he's diving into second base. And he said, "We're going to have to work on that in spring training, so we become more aware base runners." And you are seeing the Reds do that, and you are seeing that lead to wins. Not just Tuesday, the role it played on Monday, the role it played on Saturday in Texas. Like, you're seeing that show up, and that's good stuff that you feel like is a sign of what's to come.
Let's get to the play that changed the game. And De La Cruz is on third base. And I watch every base runner in this situation, but I specifically watch Elly De La Cruz because he has the ability to do different things with his speed and with his length that other players don't have. It was a case where he was at third base, and the third baseman, Marlins third baseman, is so far off the bag that De La Cruz can essentially take a lead 45 feet, halfway to home plate. I'm I'm thinking at the time, is this a chance for him just to go?
I was
Um,
thinking that too. I think
because
he was thinking that too.
I think he has to be thinking that, but it happens so much. There are times when a third baseman is so far off the bag, and I'm looking at the base runner at third base going, not necessarily you should steal home, but why are you not halfway home right now? Because there's no chance, whatever happens, there's no chance anybody can beat you back to the third base bag. Take everything that's given. And when he took 45 feet essentially, and at 6'4" or 6'5", whatever he is, I thought he could probably just go and get to the plate and cause enough confusion that he can slip a hand in there and be safe and tie the game. The second best thing happened in that a ball in the dirt that really didn't get away very far provided him just enough of a window that he did exactly that. So the original thought is at some point, somebody's going to play De La Cruz loosely enough in that situation that I think he will take off again. But in this situation, the kudos to De La Cruz for having the necessary lead to provide himself the ability to do what he did, and having the read and the quick reaction to go. That's great base running. And you have a third base coach in Willie Harris who is seen Elly De La Cruz run the bases up close and personal for the first time. So what was his take?
I'd like to introduce Willie Harris real quick. So Willie,
Please.
first of all, uh, very solid big league player, had a nice career, including some time with the Reds. Worked in Reds player development for a bit after he was playing. Um, then was the Cubs third base coach for a couple of years. Now at the Reds. So, like, the Reds are having a 3-point shootout in spring training, and Jose Trevino's the MC, and he's doing like fun facts on each player as they're shooting. And the fun fact of Jose on Willie was fun fact is he's the most energetic third base coach in the league. And you know what? I enjoy watching Willie work. He is in it. There was a moment in spring where he was getting a guy to slide, and he literally like laid out Superman style he was on the ground. Like, he is a fun guy, a big energy guy, a big personality, and he is in it. This guy is playing as he
Yeah.
coaches third. So he was in that moment with Elly De La Cruz, fighting for every inch.
Yeah.
And so the next day, I went to Willie, and it was really cool just getting to hear his perspective on that.
Let me set this up for you. Um, First off, I wanted to agree on the big energy. When you said big energy, think about the energy that was injected into this team with the addition of Willie Harris, with the addition of Eugenio Suárez. Those are two big energy guys that have come.
I'm going to figure this out.
If you're on the YouTube, if you're not on the YouTube right now, what just happened is the Chaz is somewhere in the press level in Miami, and the lights just went out. That happens. That's all right. You're back. Okay, you got to unmute your mic though because your mic is off. Okay, so
We
now
got
you're
light.
back. Okay, we got you back. We got Chaz back in the spotlight. The big energy has been huge for this team in different ways. I think it's going to impact everyone throughout the season. But let's get back to Willie Harris and get inside the clubhouse for the first time in this show, brought to you by the advertising suite by RNA Marketing. You know the name RNA Marketing, what they've done for the Growler Podcast Network. They've been in business for a long time. They've been helping people be successful for a long time. And now they roll out the advertising suite to really drill down and focus on ways they can help your business build the digital foundation that it needs to be successful. So many businesses have websites that don't really work for them. It might be something that looks good, doesn't really drive traffic and generate revenue. The advertising suite is about performance, and they can change that for your business. And so this trip inside the clubhouse to hear from Reds third base coach Willie Harris is brought to you by the advertising suite, which you can find at theadvertisingsuite.com. Chaz, take it away.
Here's Willie Harris. One more fun fact on him, and this isn't a fun fact, but like he wears number 99. Like he's a very cool guy. Like it's a very cool number. And it's always fun getting to talk to him behind the scenes. And this was, I guess, my first on mic interview with him. Here's my conversation with Willie Harris on Elly's run home. Talk about with Elly during the 9th inning yesterday.
I just talked to him and all of the guys when they get to third base about anticipating the ball in the dirt. I mean, they're all looking for it, especially him. But it's just a conversation that it not only happens with him, it happens with everyone. Like, anticipate, expect that ball in the dirt, whether you're on third, second, or first. We talk about that a lot here.
Is thinking in advance the key to scoring a run like that?
I think anything you do, if you kind of put yourself in the situation before it happens, it kind of slows it down and you're not caught off guard. It's kind of expected. So, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it, yeah.
That was kind of the first wow Elly base running moment of the season. You know, what was it like kind of seeing that from your perspective?
I don't consider it being a wild base running decision by him. I mean, the ball didn't kick that far away, but with his elite speed, he was able to get a good jump and able to make it with a good slide. I mean, it was definitely good. It would have been a play at the plate if the pitcher fielded the ball cleanly, but that's the pressure that he puts on you with that speed, man, and with his reaction. Sorry about that word, but it's just, for me, it's been fun to watch him play. I'm still learning about most of our guys, and especially him with the makeup speed that he has. I mean, there's pretty much no stop signs for Elly with me. And if they make the play throwing him out, good play.
Lastly, what did yesterday show about kind of the base running identity and what that can do for you guys?
I mean, we've been running the bases extremely well all year long. We had some situations where we were doubled off on some line drives. One that really stands out for me is the one in Texas with Elly at third, and the other one with, I think, Dang was on first. Those are tough plays to read, but the one with Elly, that can't happen. And we talk about that, but we emphasize the importance of base running every day. That our guys, myself, Nap, and CC, they're getting it every day from different ways. So it's definitely been a plus in the way we've been playing, and we really haven't started banging the ball around yet. So it's a good sign if we can continue to run the bases at a high level, and the hits will come and the defense is there. We'll be in a good spot.
Elly is a guy who, like, the last week, it seems like he's really, 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 really looking to run.
Yeah.
Sal's running really well. McLean's running really well. Benson's going to run. Marte has to hit more, but, you know, he did have a hustle single where he hit 30 feet per second on, you know, his sprint speed. So, like, they've got guys, they've got options, and they're doing a better job as a team collectively.
I'm so glad you introduced Willie Harris. I think that's going to be fun, and I hope we can go back to him throughout the season. It kind of feels like we can. That's a good perspective, and just a good dude that seems to be the, like you said, the energy and the fit that the Reds might be looking for. That trip and that visit with Willie Harris, that trip inside the clubhouse, brought to you by the Advertising Suite, the specialized network that can handle the heavy lifting of your digital strategy so business owners can focus on running their company. Check out the advertisingsuite.com. Circling back to something you touched on before, let's talk about new names that have been part of the moments or the difference in the Miami series. Nathaniel Lowe, Jose Franco, Brock Burke. Seen we heard Terry Francona a couple of times in this series talk about team wins and everyone contributes. That's what he's talking about. How do you feel about how the pieces, specifically some of the new pieces, have contributed and fit so far?
1 through 26, this is the deepest roster the Reds have had in a while. Now they have two issues right now. First is, like, the line I'm gonna keep using, I've said this before in this show, is they need more guys in the 85 to 90 rating range on MLB The Show, and of course, that's not literal, that's, like, metaphorical. They need more guys to get there, like a peak McLean, a peak Marte, guys hitting their ceilings like that. Um, but as a whole, like, the Reds have clear and have had successful ways to use Myers, to use Lowe, to use Burke. Franco steps up in a really tough spot and succeeds. The other concern for me is the Reds' starting pitching depth as a whole. They're one injury away from being in a tough spot, though I do give a lot of credit to Chase Petty, who showed some more swing and miss ability and had a fantastic start the other day. But the rotation in AAA from a rotation is more of a question. But even outside of that, they have great AAA depth from a position player perspective, great from a position player perspective, great depth in AAA from a bullpen perspective. And then, of course, what we're talking about is they have a very Terry Francona has a very clear way to use this bench, and the pieces fit together as well as they have in at least the last couple of years, kind of with how the different types of guys complement each other and what that means for what they can use to play matchups.
A question mark was Sam Maul,
Mhm.
who last year kind of faded off the radar some. Um, and Sam Maul so far has looked really good. And he's been given some opportunity, obviously, because of the way things have gone with pitching early in the season. What's the take on Maul right now and his value, I guess, and his bounce back?
I mean, first of all, he ate a lot of outs
Hmm.
on Wednesday, which was huge. The
Yeah.
big game for him, I want to say it was either Saturday or Sunday in Texas. And Terry Francona said post game how the situation I just put him in, it was a high leverage spot, very high leverage, shows how highly I think of him.
Mhm.
I think Sam's one of the best stories on the team right now. He was the last guy to make this bullpen, and a guy who kind of bet on himself in the offseason, believed he could still reach the level that he had showed flashes of, wasn't able to when he hasn't, mainly because, for physical reasons. He's had some shoulder stuff that he's dealt with during his career that impacts his arm slot. His slot impacts how he spins the ball and his ability to throw strikes. But Sam showed up in spring and he's like, one, I figured out the shoulder, and two, or not figured out, but one, the shoulder feels better than it has in a long time. And two, like, I'm seeing the results of how I'm spinning the ball. I think I'm going to be good. I think I'm very well set up. He said that in the first day of spring. And he was right. He was very confident for a guy who had a very disappointing 2025 season.
N
And he looks really good against left-handed hitters, which is what he's here to face. And that's a big deal for a Reds bullpen that has had to live without Caleb Ferguson so far.
Let's turn the page now to a story that I had to remind myself after reading Charlie's chalkboard, and I think it probably um, stood out to a lot of people because with the return of Geno Suarez, and that he wasn't going to play third base a lot because of Key Brian Hayes, he wasn't going to play first base a lot because certainly of Sal Stewart and the way that's taken off. But I don't think a lot of us really realize that this could be a drastically different role for Geno Suarez. I mean, you know that his value is at the plate. You know that his value is when he's swinging the bat. But to ask him to do only that, really on a consistent basis for the first time in his career, for baseball players to have they're the most routine focused players in professional sports, I think, in terms of it's every day and you have a routine and you do it a certain way. And now, 12, 13 years into his big league career, Suarez is being asked to change that routine because he's not going to play in the field that much. And so I was glad you went to him. I was glad you went to Mike Napoli about this change, because I think it's been underrated, the significance of what that could do to someone who's done it the same way for so many years. So when you jumped into, hey, you're the DH for the first time in your career on a regular basis, what did you find out?
Well, first of all, this wasn't the initial plan. He's played, I believe, like 3 games at third so far, but he was also gonna place him first. Like, when the
Yeah,
Reds signed him,
sure.
that we told the story, on this show, like, he was getting there at 7:30 to the facility in Goodyear, and before the sun had even rised, he was out there doing first base drills, and now Terry Francona said this the other day, "Sal Stewart's playing so well, we kinda scrapped that." Also a part of it is Geno's at the WBC, as he should, more power to him, and he didn't get to practice it all spring. So that has led to even more DH days for Geno. Before this year, he had 32 career starts as a DH. There had only been, I believe, 3 guys in all of baseball who over the last 10 years had more starts at one specific position than Geno had at third base. And that was like, all right, Freddie Freeman had more starts at first than Geno had at third, or excuse me, than Geno had at third over the last 10 years. But Geno had like 1,370 starts at third base over the last decade and 32 starts at DH. Life's different this year. Like,
Yeah.
again, just to say it one more time, he had been in as set of a routine from a position player perspective as any human being in baseball. He showed up. Something he was known for was like Elly did last year. He played every single day. Like, Geno doesn't get days off. That's a part of his reputation. He also, like, knock on wood, doesn't get hurt. Like, he showed up and he played third base for a decade until now. And now he's DHing and he's figuring out what the heck he's supposed to do.
Yeah, but I love that when you went to him, probably expecting,
Yeah.
well, I'm doing this now, and I'm doing this, and he was completely honest with you. What'd he say?
He said, "If you got any ideas, I'm all." He didn't say that, but that was the vibe. Let's hear what he had to say. Here's my conversation with Eugenio Suárez about basically, I said, "Hey man, you're a DH now. What's that like?"
Man, I don't build the one yet. I tried figure out something. I try to keep my body moving because it's kind of like new for me. But I have to create. I understand that I have to create one routine, and I try to figure out which one is the best for me. I For right now, I just keep my body move, go to inside. Um, between innings, try to move my legs, swing a little bit. Keep my rhythm to not be too comfortable or too loose during the game and keep focus. I think that's right now so far is that I have, but I promise you that I'm gonna find one that I pay off. And the soon that the season going, I'm gonna ask somebody like maybe Otani, hey, what's your routine? Maybe somebody that I have a full time DH job that I maybe help me. But right now, that's all I have.
Who else could you ask?
I did ask Low because I thought that he had a one. I know I talked to Osuna a little bit, like what you got, but he don't give me much. He just ready for it, and I Peterson I asked him, but I know him. I play with him. I know he just relax and go there and have fun. But I can't do that. I gotta keep my moving. But like I say, right now that's all I have.
Lastly, do you think Otani's going to have a lot to share? Do you know him at that level, or?
I mean, I know him pretty much. We got, not like he's my best friend. No, no. I know him, and we have just couple conversation we share in the All Star game last year. We got some, but I'm very sure that he know me and he might be giving me some. We see, but I'm gonna ask for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't have a routine yet. But he asked Marcelo Zuna, who, you heard him say, like, Marcel just kind of does his thing. And Geno said that wouldn't work for him. He asked Jock Peterson the other day. He asked Nathaniel Lowe, who actually hasn't DH'd either at any point in his career. There is one person who kind of knows what Geno's going through, and that's Mike Napoli, a Reds assistant bench coach. He played the field for a decade, and then 10 years into his career, DH pretty regularly. Napoli actually went to Big Papi at the time. David
Yeah.
Ortiz, who he knew from playing with him in Boston. But it was a similar thing. David Ortiz's routine was just sit in the clubhouse and then come out and hit. And Knapp said that didn't work for him. So Geno, it sounds like, wants to be more active and be more involved in the game. But this will all be very fluid, and we'll see how this evolves over the course of the year.
I loved in the chalkboard piece, I loved hearing from Napoli because if you're around the team on a regular basis, you know that Mike Napoli is not someone that speaks a lot outside of his inner circle. So I was glad you got him, and that was great perspective. You're right, because what a change for Geno, but I love his honesty as well. Hey, I'm asking around. I'm looking for advice, and I can't wait to see where that goes. But so far, it doesn't appear. Did he indicate at all that anything about it bothers him? I mean, he's the do anything for the team kind of guy. It appears that sitting in the dugout between at bats is not hurting him too much so far.
The stats aren't great. When I look at how he struggled, I look at, and this is something he's talked about, like making an adjustment against the high fastball and more specific swing stuff as the reason why his numbers necessarily aren't hot right now. I put more chips into that as opposed to, oh, it's the new role, it's the new
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah,
He's struggling. And I think maybe a part of that too is just he didn't get the ideal number of at bats during spring training to get that rhythm set for the season. Not the DH rhythm, but just the rhythm of an at bat and of facing pitching every day and going through that process and that routine. He had his spring. Again, great that he played in the WBC, but it was just a different schedule that
right.
he was on. So I look at those as more reasons to weigh maybe why he's not tearing the cover off the ball right now. But I think he'll be fine. And then, as we've said many times, he'll lead the Reds to wins, and that'll be his value.
Yeah, but just to wrap it up on Suarez and things you've written this week, Terry Francona talking about how his energy and how players gravitate to him. You talked to Noelvi Marte, and he already said, hey, talking to Geno has been huge for me. All of those things happen outside of, the 9-inning game, but they're all beneficial to the Reds and part of the package that they knew that they paid for when they got Geno Suarez to come back. Let's do Tito's take now and get to the manager. And I want to throw some, knowing that the Reds are a dozen games or so into the season, I want to throw some names at you. Garrett Crochet, Paul Skeens, Bubba Chandler, Jack Leiter, Sandy Alcantara, Iori Perez, all pitchers the Reds have faced, starting pitchers with track records, reputation, nasty stuff that the Reds have seen in the first 4 series of the season. We've established that 2 things are happening. Reds are winning games, but they're not scoring much. What was Tito's take on the pitching they've seen so far and how they've handled it?
Of all of those names, like Sandy on Tuesday was like the most unhittable. Of course we saw Skeens, we saw Crochet, but like the way Sandy was throwing strikes with pinpoint command and power, like you'll hear me ask Tito, what do you do? And of course that's their job. Similar to what I was saying about Geno, like I look at the Reds' struggles offensively as more individual mechanic and swing and approach oriented as
Yeah.
opposed to any sort of team-wide slump or guys pressing or guys trying to do too much, anything like that. Now, part of that is too, they've been facing some great pitching. That doesn't take away from the fact that a bunch of guys have things specifically to work on. The pitching's a part of it, but it's its own thing, and it's an adjustment process they went through at this point last year as well. Now, at this point last year, they weren't winning games. At least they have the luxury of winning games now. But the Reds did some real specific things to improve their offense in late April last year, and they're probably going to have to do the same this year.
What about Noelvi Marte? I mentioned he's talking to Suarez, but you've dug a little bit into Marte, and first off, he's not playing as much as we thought he might play, or in the situations necessarily that we thought he might play. But when he's in the box, what is he seeing, and what is impacting his early season numbers?
So this stat is entering Wednesday's game. I'm sure it holds up looking at how it went yesterday. Marte is only seeing 35% of pitches in the strike zone this year. Think about that. Pitchers are game planning to throw him balls. I believe the league average is somewhere around 40% of pitches end up in the strike zone for the average hitter. Marte is not seeing strikes. And a part of that is kind of the number one thing on his scouting report is he never walks. Phil was like 16 walks last year, something like that. It's been single digits before. So he's chasing. And because of his long athletic swing, he's making contact and he's just rolling over, topped over grounder after grounder after grounder. The exit velocities are nice, but there's something in his approach that he has to correct to be more consistent. And he also spoke about just his routine and balancing and managing not playing every day and coming up with the way to feel like you're ready for the game, even if you're not in the lineup that day. Some very specific things he needs to do against left-handed pitching. There's some things he's got to work on and process to be the best version of himself.
Circle back to the manager and Tito's take on this topic, kind of big picture. What is that?
Yeah, looking at the elite pitching the Reds have been facing, I asked Tito, what do you do? Here's Terry Francona talking about what the Reds need to do when they face an ace who's rolling. So last night, Sandy, just unbelievable. Alcantara. What do you do? Like in terms of, all right, let's make an adjustment maybe the second time through the order, the third. What's that like in the dugout when you're facing a guy who's got it all?
Well, the good part was that we weren't down by 6 because we knew we had our hands full. I mean, it's weird because when you're competing, it's not like you think like, oh my God, we have no chance. You never feel like that. I mean, I think there's a respect that this guy's really good. If he makes a mistake, you better hit it. But I just think you just feel like, I don't know, it's just the way you're built. It's like, we'll figure it out. Even when you're not sure you're gonna, it's just the way it's the way when you compete, it's just kind of the way you're built.
When you're facing an Alcantara as he was yesterday or a Skeens, do you take a different approach than when you're facing a number 3 starter? Just because kind of...
I don't think that's a altogether fair question. Like a number 3 starter might throw 100, but he might not command.
Yeah.
Or there might be different reasons. I think that's why Val has a meeting every night, because they try to figure out, okay, how do we want to attack this guy? And they try to do that every night.
It's an ongoing process. I believe last year the Reds, the adjustment they made was like specifically geared up towards helping them be more aggressive early in counts and helping them against velocity. Like if I remember that right, that's what they did last April to help the offense find its stride. And Volek is good about that kind of stuff, identifying things kind of from a messaging, from a team perspective that can apply to a lot of guys. And I'm sure those conversations are going on right now.
A reminder, the email for the show is powerstackspod@gmail.com, powerstackspod@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. And if you have a business, we'll throw this out again. If you have a business and you'd like to partner with us and join the great partners that we currently have that we're so pleased about, email us. Let us know. We can customize something for your business to get your message out to all of Reds country. We're just getting started this season, and we would love to have you along for the ride. Speaking of one of those partners, Only the Best is presented by Joseph Toyota of Cincinnati. Chaz, best thing you saw since our last show was what?
The press box coffee machine in Miami.
That's it.
They've got cappuccinos. They've got vanilla flavoring that's really good. They've got strong coffee. It's quick. I've said for years that it's the best coffee machine in baseball, and it lives up to the test every time.
But let's be clear, this is iced coffee for you.
Well, these are hot. I wish they were iced coffee, but I'll.
I didn't know
sneak in
you
a
did hot
or two
coffee at
during the
all.
game. I'm not averse to it. I
Okay.
love iced coffee. It's like I love chocolate
Okay.
ice cream. I'll also have and enjoy vanilla.
Okay.
I love iced coffee. I'll also have and enjoy a hot coffee.
There's something to say. I thought it was just iced coffee, so that's good. If you're going to have hot, you would think you would have that early in the morning, but I know that in spring training in Arizona, you still want iced early in the morning, so that's okay. Anyway, I'm glad you said that because that's
okay.
that's the kind of content that you don't get anywhere else, and most of us out there might not ever experience coffee in the press box at LoanDepot Park, but now you know that Charlie Goldsmith thoroughly enjoyed that coffee machine, and I know that there's going to be more. There's going to be more about the spread or Frankie 2 Scoops in Philly.
Just wait till we get to the wind flow at LoanDepot Park, which I have here on the rundown.
You've
I'm
got it on the
anticipating
rundown.
that part of the program.
Okay, so we're going to get through that. So let's do Charlie's notebook. We're going to finish with Charlie's notebook, and let's try and do these kind of a little more rapid fire because there are a number of bullet points here in the rundown, which you so carefully constructed. News and notes, and this is not good news, but maybe it's not as bad news. What's the feel on Jose Trevino? You see a catcher go down, and you hear it's his back. That never feels like that's going to be something short term. Is that realistic to think that might be short term? I know we don't have all the results just yet.
So as Trevino got his MRI this morning, that was the exact same time as Terry Francona met with us. So we don't have the update today of how the MRI went. I can tell you pre-MRI from everything they felt about the situation that it felt like more of a short-term IL stint, which is good. It's something that Jose had been battling since spring training. Is how Terry Francona described it. He'd feel better, and then he'd catch, and then he'd kind of take a step back.
We've timed out again. It's lights out in Miami, the city where the lights seemingly stay on all the time because people don't sleep. But in the press box, Chaz timed out.
Francona said maybe, and this is just speculation, but Francona used the word injection. So maybe that's something that helps Jose out. In the meantime, congrats to PJ Higgins.
Yeah. So you introduced us to Willie Harris. Introduce us to PJ Higgins.
This kind of stuff's the best for me. Because I mean, I've known PJ for a few years now in the organization, and now everyone's like, who's PJ? PJ played against the Reds a decent amount in 2022 when he was with the Cubs. Kind of a catcher first base type, didn't really produce, wasn't really a toolsy defensive catcher. Spent all of 2023 in AAA with the Cubs. Reds pick him up in 2024. Spent all of that AAA season in Louisville. Same with 2025, and then he's been in Louisville now for 3 years. And he said he reflected a lot, or he learned a lot just about the way he valued just the organization with the Reds. He knew the grass wasn't always greener, and he felt like he had a good thing going, and he wanted to keep coming back to the Reds organization, even though he knew he was never really on the radar for a call up. Higgins said he was shocked to get the call up when he got the news. He was in the big leagues in 2022. At that point, he had no wife, no kids. He said, I was living the single life in the big leagues. And now he's got a wife, 2 kids, and they all get to be a part of this. And that's really cool for a guy who is a very humble, quiet behind the scenes guy, who, earns a lot of respect that way, who now gets rewarded for kind of being a glue guy in Louisville and gets his shot back in the big leagues.
And he is the master of ABS.
That's right.
For his challenges last season in the minor leagues. What was he, like 82% over the course of a season?
I mean, he's the GOAT. He's the
Yeah.
GOAT of ABS based on the AAA stats. So that's another way he can impact the game for sure. That might be his biggest strength. He's not a
Okay.
slugger. He's not
Yeah.
a rocket arm guy. I think Will Banfield was the better catcher in AAA, but there are different factors at stake for why you end up picking Higgins over Banfield. But again, like, this is a human story, a guy who is a journeyman who has been who's been really a backup in AAA for a few years. He's gone through the process of, doing what he needs to do to set up the chance to get his degree so he can coach after he's done playing. Like, he's at that stage of his career, and for him to be rewarded for all the sacrifices he's made and the sticking to it with a chance back in the big leagues, as Terry Francona said, good for him.
Couple of more updates. The roster maneuvering takes us to a place that I think a lot of people may not have seen this coming. Whereas just a season ago, I think the hopes for Christian Encarnacion Strand were still very much a part of this team's future. But DFA'd Christian Encarnacion Strand. How did we land here?
Well, the league adjusted. 2023, he was up there swinging. He's as much of a field-based hitter as I've ever seen. One of the best bad ball hitters I've ever seen.
Bad ball, yeah.
And I'm just going up there kind of to hack. And boy, that worked for a couple months. And then in 2024, it really didn't. And then he got hurt. And then in 2025, he had a couple good games, and he can still swing a game with his power. But the strike zone judgment and the approach just never got there. The chase was terrible. He had reverse splits, so you couldn't make him a platoon guy. There just wasn't a way for him to impact the team. The third base defense wasn't going to get to the point where he could help you that way. Like, I would have been surprised in 2023 hearing this. But he was a guy fighting for his roster spot before he got hurt in 2024 and 2025 for all season. Obviously, he spent most of the year in AAA. I was not surprised when he got DFA'd. I do wish him well. You know, he had been humbled a lot by everything that happened, and maybe a change of scenery is what he needs.
Injury updates. And is there some voodoo cure for blisters
Maybe.
in Nick Lodolo's future? We don't know, right? Maybe?
Well, they're trying something. I'm not in a position to report right now what something is.
Yeah.
I could use words like resource and gadget
Okay.
and something that can help the process of how it all goes. I'm not at liberty to share what it is.
Okay.
But Nick did his research, and the Reds, of course, are doing their research, learning different things that work for different people, because it is different for everybody. Heck, Lodolo's blister is in a very rare place. Usually people get blisters, you know, not on, I believe, the pad of their index finger. So that's a part of it all. Like, how much Lodolo sweats is a part of it all. So there's a lot of, I use the word data, but that's the thing though. It's not data, because it's not like anything. It's not like his elbow isn't bending a certain way. It's just the skin on your finger. It's a funny thing. You know, we have elbow experts, we have wrist guys, we have foot specialists. There's no blister guy. But the good news for Lodolo is, again, there's some optimism, and he threw a bullpen today. I don't know that he threw a slider. I don't know, but probably not something you want to aggressively rip. But he is keeping his arm fresh, and that would cut down on the time he missed when the blister is fully healed.
Stay tuned. Fingers crossed on Nick Lodolo. And quickly, oblique, you know, typically that takes a while. Where's Caleb Ferguson right now?
He also threw his first bullpen this afternoon. He's been moving well. I've watched him run around. I've watched him throw on flat ground. It's not one of the more major oblique injuries they've seen. So today was a big step for him. He'll need a rehab assignment at some point because he barely pitched in spring. So that'll be a process that'll still be going on. But he is very, very much on the descent towards being back on the big league roster.
And to finish up in Charlie's notebook, it says, and I quote in our rundown, "I'd like to discuss the wind flow at LoanDepot Park." Please, Chaz, let's discuss the wind flow.
All right, so fly balls are dying. Fly
Yeah.
balls all series, especially
Yeah.
to left field, are dead. And I was talking to a player, Reds player, who had a line out about this, and he's like, "It's the wind." And he pointed me out to this. He said, "Look for this tomorrow." And he was right. So pregame pyrotechnics, great. You know, here are the Marlins, fireworks, smoke. Great, very common. Of course, this is a dome. I've never seen this before. The smoke just lingers in left field and in right field for hours. We are indoors, and that smoke is basically forming clouds on each side of the ballpark. Indoor clouds. They look like clouds that you can see, because there is not enough air current to even break up and disperse the smoke. So just like if you put an ice cube in water, it'll just sit there. Like, the smoke in the air just sits and nothing's moving it. And it's kind of spooky. And it's probably cost the Reds the wind flow at least 2 homers in this series, maybe 3. It is very eerie just seeing those clouds 90 feet above the ground.
So we're talking about a lack of wind flow.
Yes.
And the heaviness in the air created by the smoke. Is that what you're getting at, scientifically speaking here?
I think you put that science very well. I think you
Okay.
summed that up very well.
And
And you
is
can see it.
Is the roof ever open in Miami? It's almost never open, right?
I've seen it open once.
Yeah,
It
it's almost
hasn't
never
been
open.
It has been gray and kind of cloudy this
Yeah.
week, so I get why it's not open.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all you have on the wind flow?
That's all I've got on the wind.
That's great. And we got to hurry because you're about to time out on the lights again. So check out the YouTube show, and twice in our less than an hour show, you can see the lights go out on Chaz and him get up to rectify that. Watch the YouTube show, click that bell for notifications. Be sure to subscribe and like. This has been so fun so far, and we really want to share this and spread the podcast as much as we can. Power Stacks, you can find it anywhere. If you don't watch the YouTube, anywhere you get the audio podcast, download it, subscribe, like, share it with a friend. People who are asking you right now about the Reds, say, hey, well, here, check out this podcast, Power Stacks with Giesenslaw and Goldsmith. I think you'll like it. So thanks for following along. And the Reds are about to get back to Great American Ballpark, Chaz. They're going to see the Angels. That means Mike Trout. These days, that means Joe Adele.
Brent Suter.
And Brent Suter. Exactly. I forgot about Brent Suter. That'll be a great reunion.
Candelario.
Well, there is that. And you're one of his
popular.
favorites, though.
Yeah, it's a story for another day.
Well, another day. We've got another day coming up soon on the next edition of Power Stacks. But back to the ballpark and the Angels coming up on Friday. Thanks for checking out the show. Chaz, travel safely. We'll see you back at GABP, and we'll see everyone else next time on Power Stacks.